Hi everyone, I'm Miranda and welcome to my YouTube channel. First of all, today I just wanted to say thank you so much to everyone who commented and contributed to the discussion of China Court by Rumour Godden. That was our first comfort book club pick for August, and Mum and I had the best time reading all of your comments over the weekend, and I was really amazed by how many people had read the book and were joining in with the discussion. So it was so lovely to hear from so many of you. Thank you so much for making the Comfort Book Club such a success from the beginning, and I can't wait to keep reading. September's choice is obviously Period Piece by Gwen Ravrat. October's choice is 84 Charing Cross Road, and congratulations to Liz Dorrington, who won the giveaway of the slightly foxed edition of 84 Charing Cross Road. I hope you love it. But now I want to chat to you about secondhand books. I know lots of you, like me, love vintage books and going to thrift shops and charity shops and book fairs and all the rest of it to pick up some great vintage and secondhand books. And I don't always share the secondhand books that I buy in my regular book haul videos, and I thought it might be fun to start sharing a bit more about what I'm buying secondhand and doing some vintage book haul chats with you, because I definitely love picking up vintage books, and I know so many of you do as well, and I thought it would be fun to share them with you. So I've got quite a stack to get through. Mum and I have been having a lot of fun going to charity shops in Yorkshire and looking for books, and this time of year there are a lot of village fairs and festivals and things like that happening. Mum and I went to, I think it was my very first village fair over the weekend. We've just had the bank holiday weekend in the UK, and it was so much fun to go to this little charming village in Yorkshire and see all the stalls that were out, and of course there was a bookstall too. So we did really well. We got a whole pile of books for £2, which was amazing, and I'll share those that we got with you very soon. But it was so fun. We went into the little church afterwards, and it just felt like I was living in a Miss Read or a Barbara Pym novel or something like that. Actually getting to see a proper English village fair for the first time. There was like bunting up and flags, and yeah, it was really amazing. And it definitely felt like I had just walked into one of my favourite vintage books. So let me share some of the great buys I've been making this month on the second-hand market. I'll share 2 books first that I actually ordered. When I buy books online second-hand, I usually shop from Abe Books or from eBay. And speaking of the Comfort Book Club, September's choice is Period Piece, which is a memoir by the illustrator Gwen Ravrat of her, well, late Victorian and Edwardian childhood. And I've been wanting to read this book that Gwen Ravrat absolutely adored, that she remembered from her own childhood and that she illustrated. And that's The Runaway, a Victorian story for the young with illustrations by Gwen Ravrat. Persephone Books have actually republished The Runaway. It was by a woman called either Anna Elizabeth Hart or Elizabeth Anna Hart. I always get that muddled, and for some reason they sort of hide the name of the author a bit in here. It's Elizabeth Anna Hart. And this is such a funny story. I'm loving reading it already. It's all about a young girl called Olga who runs away from her horrible boarding school, and she meets another young girl called Clarice, and Clarice ends up taking Olga into her own home and hiding her from her governess and from her father and everyone else who is looking for Olga. But Olga is a bit wayward and troublesome, and Clarice has a very tricky time of keeping her hidden. And it's just really, really funny already. Gwen Ravrat, like I said, absolutely adored this book. She remembered it being read to her in her own childhood, and she was really behind bringing the book back and bringing out a new edition, back then anyway, of the story with her own illustrations. And I really wanted, I do have the Persephone edition of the book, but I really wanted this sort of older edition of it too. And there are just some lovely illustrations by Gwen Ravret all through it. I love this one of Clarice and her father at tea time. So I was just really thrilled to get this. I'm enjoying reading it already. It's a good accompaniment to period piece. And then I was so thrilled to finally find a copy of this book, which I've been searching for months. So this is Sand in Our Shoes by Margaret J. Baker. It's a children's book, but if you've been following my channel for a while, then you may remember last winter I spoke about discovering and reading two lovely books. One was called Castaway Christmas by Margaret J. Baker, and the other was Cut Off from Crumpets by Margaret J. Baker. And it's a series of 3 books, and this is the final book in the trilogy, Sand in Our Shoes. All of the books are about a family, 3 children and their parents, and they have all sorts of adventures. In Castaway Christmas, the children end up having to fend for themselves. They sort of get trapped in a little holiday cottage that their parents have rented, but before their parents can get to them, they're cut off from everything by these awful floods. And then in Cut Off from Crumpets, the family are together, but they end up again being cut off from the rest of the world, this time because of a snowstorm. They're very sweet, gentle stories. I love one of the characters is called Miranda, so of course that warms me to the books even more. But I just really enjoyed them, and Sand in Our Shoes is very hard to find, and I've been wanting to find it ever since the winter, and I finally got a copy. So I'm really thrilled. I can't wait to read it. It only arrived the other day, so I haven't had a chance yet. But it's quite a good summer one, obviously, with the sand, and it's about the family have finally bought a sort of second-hand caravan, so they don't have to keep renting places when they go on holiday, and they decide to caravan right by the sea, and the children have all sorts of adventures, and judging by the other books, maybe some natural disaster happens, I'm not quite sure, but I'm just really looking forward to reading this one, so I'm so happy to finally have a copy. And then my mum found some really great books in the charity shop that she brought home for me one day, which was very exciting. She found this really sweet vintage edition of The Provincial Lady Goes Further by E.M. Delafield. I love The Diary of a Provincial Lady, that's the November Comfort Book Club choice, and I love the sequels to it too, but I don't seem to have any of them anymore. So I was so thrilled to get this one, which I think is the second in the series, The Provincial Lady Goes Further. You can see it's quite a nice old pocket-sized edition of the book. And I already was reading the first page when she brought it back, and it was just setting me off giggling already. I mean, I love these books, they're so funny. So I'm really looking forward to being able to read this one again. And then I was really thrilled because my mum found some Georgette hair paperbacks that I used to have but don't anymore because I had to get rid of a lot of my old Georgette hairs one time when I moved, and just had to get rid of a lot of books because I didn't have room for them. Now I'm trying, whenever I go into a charity shop, I look out for these old Georgette hair editions. She got Frederica, Sprig Muslin, I love the cover on this one, and Lady of Quality, you can see there. And they're bringing out new editions of the Georgette hair books now, but I don't like the covers on them very much. They're photographs of, you know, models kind of dressed up in period costume, and I just much prefer the sort of beautiful paintings on these editions. The new editions look very sort of Bridgerton inspired, and I mean, I liked Bridgerton, but I just think these are really beautiful paintings that are featured on those editions, so I'm really happy to get some of them again. And then my mum also picked up this book in a charity shop, Another Little Christmas Murder by Lorna Nicole Morgan. And I know it's very early to mention Christmas, but neither of us can resist picking up a good sort of Christmas mystery if we see one secondhand. This one I think was originally published in 1947, yes, so it's that sort of golden age era of crime, and it just sounds like it might be quite a good, hopefully cozy mystery to curl up with on a December evening. It's set in Yorkshire, which is another big plus for me. Looking forward to reading it. And again, there's a country house, there's snow, it all sounds very mysterious, and I'm looking forward to reading this later in the year for sure. And then my mum also picked up this book, which I was so thrilled that she found. It's Down the River by H.E. Bates, and it's published by Little Toller Books. You can see the lovely cover. I love Little Toller. They're a fabulous independent publishing company, and they specialise in reprinting nature books that have gone out of print, and they bring them back. And they've published another book by H.E. Bates. I think it's called Through the Woods. And I absolutely love that one. He is such an amazing nature writer. I mean, he's famous for the series of books, The Darling Buds of May. And I love that series of novels. They're utterly charming. But I also really like his straightforward nature writing. And this one is all about a river in Britain and the wildlife of a river. And I'm sure I will find it really interesting, and his prose is just so beautiful that, yes, reading anything he writes is really a pleasure. So I was so excited that she found this one, because I hadn't even realised that this was one of the books Little Toller had reprinted, so really thrilled with that. And then, like I said, over the weekend we went to a village festival, but there was a wonderful bookstall that was a part of it, and we got this whole pile of books for £2, and I'll show you what we got. So first of all, you know I'm collecting the Pan Heritage Classic editions. I think that they publish really interesting titles. This is Pan Macmillan, but it's a little imprint called Pan Heritage Classics, where they're republishing quite a few vintage books, and they have a few Gerald Durrell books, and I found 2 of them at this bookstall that I didn't have, and one is Rosy is My Relative by Gerald Durrell, and the other is Beasts in My Belfry. And this is another of Gerald Durrell's memoirs. This is about his first year in a zoo, working for a zoo. So I'm sure that will be hilarious. I mean, I love his book, My Family and Other Animals. It is such a classic. It was one of my favourite books as a child, and I still love it now. He's such a brilliant comic writer. So I'm sure this will be very funny, and I adored animals when I was little. I still do. So I always really enjoyed his blend of writing about his family in such a comic way, but also all of the natural history that he brought into his books too. And this one I think is one of his novels, and I've never read it. It's about a young man who is left an elephant in a will, and this elephant, Rosy, apparently has an unquenchable thirst for liquor. So I think that leads to all sorts of problems, as you may imagine. And it just sounds like it will be really funny. So I was excited to get this one as well. And then I'll just drag over this pile a bit closer. We did really, really well for just £2. It was amazing. There was a whole stack of vintage puffin paperbacks, and I always look out for those in charity shops and so on, because I love the old-fashioned puffin paperbacks for children. I know so many people do. A lot of people collect these, and there was a whole pile of them. and we found some really lovely ones. This is The Winter Princess by Mary Treadgold. You can see the lovely cover, and it's a wraparound cover too, which I love. And I'm intrigued by this because it's partly set and partly about Hampton Court Palace. It says, every single Friday, Sarah, Carly, Piers and Vanessa went to tea with Lady Karen at Hampton Court. Of course it was a wonderful place, but they missed the kings and queens and courtiers who had once filled its courtyards and galleries. But now at last a real princess was coming to visit Hampton Court and make it a real summer palace again. So I'm quite intrigued by this one. I also have some other books by Mary Treadgold, so I'm definitely pleased to add this one to my stack as well. And then this one will make such a lovely read in October in the run-up to Halloween. It's Carbonell by Barbara Slay. Again, you can see really charming wraparound cover. And this is such a sweet story. It's about a very ordinary schoolgirl, but one day in a market, she buys an old broomstick and a cat, and she realizes that when she's holding the broomstick, she can understand the cat. The cat talks to her, and the cat is called Carbonell. And she learns all sorts of magic and has all sorts of adventures. And yeah, just a very sweet story, and I'm really thrilled to have got this lovely edition of it. Then I always find the Molesworth school stories really funny, so I was pleased to pick up this one, How to Be Top by Geoffrey Williams and Ronald Searle. Molesworth is a very mischievous schoolboy who is always getting into trouble at school. I love Ronald Searle's illustrations. They always add so much to the humour of the stories, and I was really thrilled to get this one. Again, you can see the illustration on the back as well as the front. Another Puffin book I was so pleased to pick up, The Happy Prince and Other Stories by Oscar Wilde. This is a lovely collection of short stories for children. It has one of my very favourite short stories by Oscar Wilde in here, which is The Selfish Giant. That one always makes me cry, but I love it. And I can't wait to read some of the others that are in here too. And then I already have, of course, a copy of The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. It's such a classic, but I couldn't resist getting this beautiful old Puffin edition. I just think that's such a lovely cover. So I was so pleased to get this. And then again, I already have a copy of Henrietta's House, but I couldn't resist picking up another one. This is by Elizabeth Googe. And of course, Girls Gone By publishers quite recently reprinted Henrietta's House, and they used beautiful original dust wrapper illustration and the original illustrations from the first edition, which are lovely. But this edition is illustrated by Anthony Maitland, and I think that his illustrations are really quite charming, if very different from the first edition, and it's really nice to have this copy as well. To be honest, I think I already have the Puffin of this, but I wasn't going to say no to another one when I saw it, so I couldn't resist picking it up as well. And then my mum spotted this one, which is The Starlight Barking by Dodie Smith. It is a sequel to 101 Dalmatians, but I don't think I ever read it. I think my mum likes this one a lot actually, but I don't think I ever read it when I was young, and I'm quite intrigued to read it now. And then this was a real sentimental purchase because I adored the Teddy Robinson books when I was little, so it was lovely to see this one, Dear Teddy Robinson by Joan G. Robinson. You see again the lovely front and back illustrations, and there are really sweet illustrations inside the book as well. And yeah, this is just a real blast from the past for me. As are these books, 2 Ladybird books I couldn't resist picking up. Ladybird Book of the Ballet, and then Tiptoe, the Mischievous Kitten. I learnt to read using Ladybird books when I was little, and I still love to pick up the old vintage ones whenever I see ones that are quite sweet. So I couldn't resist these 2. And then I was looking at this one, and the very nice man at the bookstall just threw it in for me for free, which was really lovely of him. And this is Royal Britannia by Daphne du Maurier. I was very intrigued to read this one. This is a du Maurier book I've never read before, but I know that post-Brexit a lot of people picked this up actually and read it then and said how good it was. And well, if you read the blurb you see why it's so relevant now. It says, Emma, who lives in Cornwall with her grandmother, a famous retired actress, wakes one morning to find that the world has apparently gone mad. No post, no telephone, no radio, a warship in the bay, and American soldiers advancing across the field towards the house. The time was a few years in the future. England has withdrawn from the common market and on the brink of bankruptcy has decided that salvation lies in a union, political, military and economic, with the United States. Theoretically, it is to be an equal partnership, but to some people it soon begins to look like a takeover bid. So, very intrigued to read this one, and it's exciting to have a Daphne du Maurier that I've never read before, so hoping to get to this soon. And then I also got a really lovely book of poems of the countryside, and it's illustrated by Gordon Benningfield, and there are such gorgeous illustrations in this. I absolutely love them. The poems all look really beautiful too, very sort of classic pics, and they're seasonal. This is divided up into the seasons. But I know I'm going to enjoy looking through this book, not only for the poetry, but for the really beautiful illustrations as well. They just bring the English countryside to life, these illustrations. They're utterly glorious. So I was really thrilled to pick this up too. And then the last book in our £2 pile was Lullabies and Night Songs. Music by Alec Wilder, and the pictures are by Maurice Sendak, and that was the main reason that we got it, because I do love Maurice Sendak's artwork. And you can see this is a collection of songs, but it's really beautifully illustrated. So yeah, I was really pleased to find this. It's a lovely big book as well. And then finally, I just have a few more books that I ordered secondhand. One is this one, Unseen Childhoods, Disabled Characters in 20th Century Books for Girls, edited by Ellen A. Aveling. And this was published a little while ago by Bethany Press. But I'm always very interested in these more academic takes on girls' literature from the 20th century. I mean, that's a genre I'm very interested in. I collected a lot of these books when I was little, and I still do, and I love to read vintage books for children. But certainly one thing you notice in a lot of these books is this real theme of illness and disability that crops up in a lot of these sorts of stories, like The Secret Garden or What Katie Did, or even some of the Chalet School books, for instance. And this looks like a really interesting study of that theme in children's literature. And yeah, it looks like it will cover a lot of different books and a lot of different topics within this theme. So one I'm curious to read, and I'm sure I will enjoy it. And then this book I read as a teenager, and I absolutely adored it at the time. They Loved to Laugh by Kathryn Worth, and I haven't read it since then, so I don't remember much about it, but I just wanted to have it on my shelves again because I thought it'd be interesting to return to it and see if I still enjoyed it. It's about a young girl who is orphaned. It's a real sort of Ellen Montgomery style opening. She's just become an orphan and she's sent to live with a Quaker family. And at first she's teased dreadfully by the boys within this family, and she just isn't used to siblings, I think, and doesn't understand the family dynamic. But then things end up much happier, and I think there's little romance in this. I don't really remember it, to be honest, but I'm looking forward to returning to it and to seeing what I think of it now. And then another real favourite from my childhood that I couldn't believe I didn't have a copy of, actually, and once I realised that, I just had to get one. That's Mistress Masham's Repose by T.H. White. You can see the cover. And this is about a young girl who lives in family mansion, and she's under the supervision of a very strict and really not very nice governess. But one day this young girl discovers on a little island in the lake that there are these tiny people. It's a bit like the borrowers in that way. This little island is inhabited by very, very small people. And she is, of course, thrilled by this discovery and ends up having all sorts of adventures. So yes, this is another book I remember loving when I was little, but I haven't read it for years and I really want to return to it. So that is my book haul of secondhand and vintage books. I was so thrilled to get all of them, can't wait to read a lot of them, but I'd love to know what books you've managed to get. Do you like buying secondhand or vintage books, for one thing, and have you managed to find any great ones for yourself lately? Do let me know because I'd love to hear. But thank you so much for watching. Do give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and you can subscribe to my channel by clicking on my face that pops up on the screen over here. And I also just wanted to say one final real thank you today to all of the people too who have been supporting me on Buy Me a Coffee. I so appreciate it. It's so lovely to read all the little messages over there as well, and I've been really blown away by all of your kindness. So I want to say thank you so much for that as well. But I hope you have a great rest of the week, and I'll see you again on Friday. Goodbye.